Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Wednesday. It's June 22nd. This will be our chart lesson for today. And week's gone by pretty quick since we had holiday on Monday. But let's look. I thought I'd give you a look at the daily chart. You can see that we it looked like we were going to trade lower, and then this thing really rocketed up, and then we sold off some in the afternoon. So once again, we're not getting a lot of follow through. I would expect we would at least try to reach this midline before we turn back down, but this market has been so weak, who's to say? And we really have been kind of mostly sideways for the last 4, 5, 6 trading sessions. So maybe we're just going to kind of work sideways to the either the midline or the trend line. And I mean, there's nothing really to get excited about in this market other than it's so oversold. I mean, you can see how bad. Let's take a look at something here. I meant to look at this earlier. Let's put our measured move on here and just see what we're looking at. I think we're way past the measured move. Yeah, you can see we way oversold the measured move there. So this market's just really weak. If we do bounce, we could get a really nice bounce, but it just can't get any momentum going. Today was probably, I mean, yesterday was a really strong day, and today, I mean, we're going to probably close down the way it's looking. We still got 45 minutes left. Maybe we'll rally some out of there, but it looks like we're going to close just kind of a neutral bar and close down some because we're actually trading below yesterday's close at this point. So unless we rally into this last 45 minutes, I don't see it happening. So maybe we'll close higher. We'll have to see. But anyway, let's flip over to the intraday chart and go through the trades and wrap this down. Okay, you can see the overnight sell-off that looked pretty aggressive, and then suddenly we rallied. Really strong rally. We got a break here. Tried to move to a new high and didn't get it and got another leg down, and then moved to a new high before we've been trading down since that point. So the interesting thing is this thing got really strong in here. When you see a strong trend like this, and I'll talk about it when we get to it, just about every good signal bar at the trend line you can take just about and do well. But you need to be really skilled to recognize, and when you start to see all these little bitty bars and the corrections are just a bar or so that don't go very deep, those are strong trends. And you can see we had this really strong trend up, and then we had one down here. And then we started back up again. This one's not quite the same. This is a good trend back to the new high, but this is not quite the same as when you get these real tight moves with very shallow corrections in there. And I mean, you can see some bigger corrections in here. This is not quite the same. So, but when you see those, you just about have to take advantage of them. This is really a real strong trend coming down, but it didn't take long once we reversed out of here. This is like a spike and channel up. We did get the break, and this is another good learning example. I mean, when you get the break of this channel, you expect a retest of the high, but the key is the timing. And you would think we were going there here, and then suddenly we go down again. But as you can see, you get a two-legged correction, and then we still move to the new high, and prices turn down again. So this is why you can understand what prices are doing, and if you're not careful and you're not able to understand really, if you don't draw these short-term trends and channels and things, you can get thrown off here, and here you are trying to, and you can clearly see you got a channel here with a break and a move to a new high, and then it turns down. And if you're not paying attention, you're trying to get long in here, and next thing you know, you get burned. Or you try to get long in here too early. And so draw these micro trend channels, and they'll help you a lot. And sometimes you pay attention to them, and sometimes you don't. But and when you probably don't is when it comes back to this main trend line, it may win out. And so that's where you may say, okay, there's a two-legged, there's a correction here, and I've still got a micro trend that doesn't get a break, but maybe I'm still going to buy it. So it just depends. You just have to kind of, but if it's off this key entry point right here, and it's a second entry, you probably won't pay attention to it. So anyway, let's zoom in here. We'll go through the trades and we'll wrap this day up. 7 o'clock came as we were just making this correction here. We noticed we got to close outside. We had this coming down. We got to close outside, move to a new low, and then it looks like we're going to rally out of here, and you get a close outside new high, and you start dropping down here. And 7 o'clock came just in here as we're turning down. There's a high or low here that you might have considered. I don't have it on there, but if you draw your micro on this one, you clearly get a close outside and a new low, and then a higher low way away from the EMA. So maybe you take that one. I didn't mark it. It's a little bit congested, but it broke lower first and then turned up. So you probably got shorts trapped, people that aren't paying attention. But this is basically a double bottom here, and your best bet is to wait on the reversal. And notice you get a first entry and then a second entry, and that's also a second entry long. But if you just see the second entry long, you can't take this because the signal bar is not good enough. But if you see the failure as well as the second entry, that's almost a sure thing. And you can see when it turned up, you can tell they trapped them. Look how that rockets up real fast, and then everybody takes their profits there, and you get a correction and before it continues on. So that's a great setup there. And again, this one, if you want to be a little more aggressive, you probably want to take that trade. There's a good chance that you might catch an important low. Obviously, you would have got a little bit of a runner here, but not much of one. And it depends on how you played it, really. But no matter how you played this, they came back and probably got your runner. So you don't catch the lows or anything. Now, if you catch this one on this trap, well, you probably ride this one all the way because you probably get a runner on that one, and they don't come back and get it on this one. So, but anyway, we're moving on up, and then you come back and you get a first entry and then a second entry. The only reason I marked this one green for a couple of reasons. It's probably going to be a trap that traps people trying to pick tops here. But it's a second entry long. Notice your new high, and you get a first entry, second entry. It's right off that key entry point. It also looks like you might have a triple test here. It's probably going to cause some shorts to try to pick a top. And you can see that they had them trapped. Look at it go. And what's happening here too is not only are you probably trapping some shorts right here, but you probably have some more shorts that were maybe loaded up in the overnight. And they're finally throwing in the towel here saying, hey, this thing's going higher. And plus, the new traders that are seeing this momentum and understand that, hey, we're going higher here, they start coming in. And then suddenly you got a real strong trend here until you get an overshoot. And once you get this overshoot, and you might look, and maybe it's up here. But to me, this just looks like an overshoot. It looks like this is your channel right here. And you get this overshoot, which leads to a quick reversal. We've been away from the EMA since just after 8 o'clock. And so it's almost 20 or 30 minutes that we've been away from the EMA. But you don't want to go short here. Don't try picking any shorts in this trend. Really, we're just working sideways across here. And you can see that there's a triple test right there. Notice we made that low. We tested once. We tested twice. And there's also a second entry long right there. And again, I don't have it on here, but you got a little trend down with a break and a new low. And it looks like we're going to go higher, but now we're just kind of chopping sideways. So if there's a new trend line down here, what it looks like there is, but we got to wait and see. And if there is, then we may be just working sideways back to this trend line. And that's what ends up happening, but it's hard to know here yet. But notice you got a double bottom there. You get a first entry, you push through the top, you pull back, you get a second entry short, it fails. This one's a little bit aggressive. I usually like to see it test it twice, like right here. You do get a second test right here, but that signal bar is so big, and it is a second entry. I mean, if you took this trade too, I probably wouldn't That's the one you really want to wait on. But I don't like all those sideways bars. It's a little bit scary there what's going on, but it could mean we're going higher. So you may take that one, and you may even take this one because you could look at it as a failure. And sometimes those will be great trends. And you can see though, the odds are prices are coming back to this trend line. That's the main reason these are a little bit scary going long there, a little bit aggressive going long there, because we're overdue to come back to this trend line. You can see it's only a moment before we come back. I marked this one green. The signal bar is not very good. However, you could look at this like a failed second entry short. You could basically call this a double bottom, and you try to go lower once, twice. I mean, it's a little convoluted, a little more advanced, but the pattern's there, and the thing is, it's right off the key entry point. So I'm not crazy about it, I'll be honest with you. Maybe you take that trade though. If you do, it's a pretty good trade. And then of course you got this little short-term channel, and that's a really strong one. There's one of those that pulls back to the trend line. Anytime you get a good signal bar back to the trend line in these kind of trends, I mean, you know, here's one, here's one. Of course, that's not a very good signal bar. Here's one, here's one. Even this one. They generally tend to work out. I don't mark them because you really need to know what you're doing, but they're there. And I show these every time we get a trend like this. I can show you the same thing, and they're just about all good trades. And here we got two clear legs back with a break and a new low right at the key entry point. Very small signal bar for this kind of volatility that we're having, to be able to enter on a 10-tick bar. I mean, that's pretty low volatility. And of course there's a failure here, but that's two sideways below the EMA. And you do get a new low, and then you get a first entry, second entry short, and that's what a reversal failure type looks like. That's the one I like going long on. And boom, off it goes. And there's one that comes back. I didn't mark it, but you could take that trade. Here's another one. I don't know if I would even mark that one green just because the signal bar is not very good, but if you get a good signal bar, take it. Here's another one. Here's another one. You could have taken this one. It would have taken a few minutes to work, but it would have worked. Of course, we get the close outside here in a new high, so you got to be more careful with these two. And this is just kind of sideways, so I didn't mark anything. And of course, there's a second entry long there. I didn't mark that one. You can see we had a measured move there, and we're just kind of bouncing off the midline. And there is room to get out, so that's another one. I didn't mark it, but you could argue for that trade. This is a strong trend, and we haven't reached the high yet. But here's the kicker, is we may not make it this time. I mean, you can see this thing's starting to lose some momentum here. We're starting to swing to the right and get bigger corrections. So you got to be a lot more careful up here. Then of course we finally start working down, and there's no setups here and then we suddenly are in this, and so you don't want to be going short or long here. I don't see anything worth taking, and then suddenly we drop and we get that break. But there was a clue. We didn't get back up there. That, hey, we're running out of momentum, so that tells you we may get a break here. So you got to be aware of that. So just sit tight until the key is we do have this coming down, but we have a break and a new low. So just sit tight until you don't want to go long too early. Maybe you take this trade and try to ride it back to the EMA. It's not a great signal bar. It's fairly bullish. I definitely don't think you want to take that one, even though you could argue that's a second entry. So maybe you even take them both. This one's being real aggressive here, though, because that's a fairly strong momentum. So you're just throwing darts at a board. I'm not even going to mark that one, but maybe you take that one. You can't take anything in here. You just got a sideways channel there. You break out, and again, too congested. But finally you come down here, and now you get a break of the channel, and then you make a higher low here. So you're probably going to retest this high. If you've got room there, take that one. and then suddenly, actually I put that in the wrong place. That should go right there. Actually, no, it's not. Um, there's your first entry, your second entry, and it's right off the key entry point. So there's your failure. So I like going long on that one because you're probably going to have them trapped right there, especially with that big bearish signal bar after a break. Guaranteed the shorts are going to load up right there and it breaks lower. So you got to, not only do you have a reversal type pattern there, you've got a bit of a trap off people trying to top pickers, and you know, those guys are just like, those are like gimmies, freebies almost. So we do run to make a new high here. We don't make the new high on the overall channel here. We just make a new one on this green one, and we don't get there, and then suddenly we're rocketing down. But this is a real strong reversal. Notice the first entry, and then just shoot right through the EMA. You pull back in second entry, and it quickly fails, and then boom. I didn't mark this one. You make a new low here, but technically that's 2 legs back. And if you took that trade, it's not a perfect setup, but that's 2 legs back to the trend line. If it had got back to the EMA, I might have marked it just like it is. But it's a little convoluted the way it is, so I left it green. And then of course you run down and you get another first entry. This is a double top, so you get a first entry, second entry right at the key entry point. Only reason I marked it green is because we've been away from the EMA for so long, and it's time for prices to snap back. But I'm pretty sure with that green bar and it breaking higher and turning down right off the trend line, you should get a scalp out of that. You might want to pay attention to how much room there is to that low as well if you want to be aggressive and take that. And then of course we bounce here. You get a break. I'd at least wait on the second entry here, and you don't get that till way down here, and you can't take you can't take that right there. Technically, that's not even a second entry because you made a new low right there. And it drops on down. So you got your break, 2 legs down to a new low. You make a new low there, and you get a first entry. You shoot through the EMA. You pull back. It actually breaks lower first, goes higher. When it breaks above there, that's a failure, and that's where you're looking for a reversal again, because this khaki or yellow looking channel is played out. And look at it, they got the shorts trapped again, and there it goes. And they were battling it out here, but the buyers went out. Look how we're holding on that midline in the EMA. That's a good sign that even though they're battling it out, that the buyers are winning, and then suddenly you get a second entry. Notice that new high, first entry, second entry. I like going long right there. And then finally prices just kind of work their way back over here to the trend line. If you'd got a good signal bar here, you would have had a triple test, and right at the key entry point, it looks very close to the same way we had one here. We had the one back here. It's kind of a repeat pattern, but the signal bar is just real iffy, and it's just a first entry there. So I'd wait on that one. You can see most traders didn't really like that, or would have taken off. Once it does climb, though, because you would expect it to go higher from there, it still struggles, but it finally takes on off. And technically, there is a second entry right here because it makes a lower high. And again, this is looking like that. You don't really have enough evidence here that this is a real strong trend again yet, though. So I don't think I would take that. It's just kind of an inside bar. It's way away from the EMA. It's just not a good setup. And if you're just patient, a few minutes later, you get a first entry, second entry with a nice bar right at the key entry point. You can see this one takes on off. And then you get another one a few minutes later. That's not the greatest signal bar, but that's the first close outside. So on the second entry, if it breaks higher there, we're probably going higher. And there it goes. And you can see it takes on off this time. Run up here, and there's so much momentum that we still make another high. And there's 2 legs back. I didn't mark this one. This turns out to be this opens and goes lower and then comes back, and it never breaks higher. So I don't think you can risk that. And it finally does push out, but when it fails right there after a break, and new high here. And plus now we've got a new high on the main channel. Even if that would have broke higher, I don't think I would have taken it. I would have waited to see if you get a higher low. And when that fails right there, that's you probably want to go short, because I guarantee you they got them trapped. And you can see it kind of shoots down real fast, and as soon as the momentum of the trap runs out, it kind of slows down and just are more going sideways than anything there. I don't see any other trades here I like until we get into this sideways stuff. I did mark this one. You've got this channel, this correction. This is the first break of this khaki one, so you're probably going to try to make a new low. And you get a break and new high here, and then you're running down, you get a break, and you try to go short once. So that's a second entry. I went back and forth about whether this should be red or green. I marked it red, but it's real close to being green. There's plenty of room to get out there, but it's not a perfect signal bar. But if you come back and you look, it's a first entry, second entry. But then, too, generally you don't want to count that if you're kind of going sideways. And it's pretty obvious this is kind of some sideways stuff. It's not a perfect sideways channel, but, I mean, there's obviously some support there. So that's the real key. And you got to make sure you got room there. But this is looking like it's going lower to me. And this is probably going to trap people. The key to this one is this is a trap. Notice we bounced once off that low, and this is like a triple test right here. And it bounces again, and it fails. And so I guarantee you there's enough buyers there that you're going to get a little move down. And, of course, we do, and it ends up breaking and continuing on down. And you're trying to make a new low here anyway. And you haven't quite gotten it in. I don't think this made a new low. If it did, it wasn't by much. 82.25, 82. Yeah, it did make a new low. So, but you can clearly see that prices are trying to. We're not bouncing out here. This is not rejection off these lows. Which, if we were going to go higher, we should see rejection. You can see the midline holding, the EMA holding. There's a good chance. I mean, it's not real obvious we're going to go much lower until right here. But right here, it looks like, hey, we're going to at least break lower and make a failed breakout. And as long as you got room to scalp out, that's kind of the key there. Again, you could argue for that to be green. I mean, you could argue for reasons not to even take it, but I liked it. I'll probably make it green. It's not what I would call a sure thing, but there's a lot of reasons to like it. And there it is. That's what I saw today. So clearly we had a little bit of momentum today that faded late in the day, which seems to be every rally seems to fade on us. So you just don't know. And there was the Fed chair spoke this morning, but that tended to rally things more than a sell-off. So I don't know what they said. I don't even care. It doesn't matter. Can't believe anything they say anyway. Anybody that says inflation's 8%, it's got to be lying. I mean, all you got to do is go to the store or the gas pump, and you know inflation's a lot higher than 8%. I mean, any moron can figure that out, but they think we believe this stuff. So anyway, I didn't mean to get into that, but I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow and wrap up our week, but I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.